fellow American cooks. It is time, once again, to celebrate classic American cuisine here on Goodies. In this spinning raffle drum, there are hundreds of cards, and on each card, there is a name of a dish from the Great American Menu. And one of these lucky applications is about to get the patented Good Eats Go-Over. And today's lucky dish is... hot diggity dog, one of my all-time favorites. The often misunderstood poster dish for New Orleans, red beans and rice. It's historic, it's nutritious, it's not a lot of work, and with just a little bit of love and understanding, it is abso-definitively no dish represents Creole cuisine like beans and rice. And by Creole, we mean the cuisine of New Orleans, right? Well, not so fast. Truth is, New Orleans is the great northern capital of a Creole empire encompassing Cuba, Puerto Rico, and most of the West Indies. It is here that the old world and the new, the light and the dark, the indigenous and the imperial first converged. So, we will divide our grocery list along cultural lines. First stop, Africa. Now, by the 17th century, West Africans kidnapped and put to hard labor on sugarcane plantations had become the majority population in the islands. Fortunately, they brought their wisdom of nutritious beans with them. Now, although pigeon peas rule in the Lesser Antilles and black beans in Cuba and Central America, in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and New Orleans, the red kidney is the once and future bean. Now, New Orleans cooks tend to prefer smaller varieties, but I say that if it's red and kidney-shaped, it is welcome in my pot. Canned beans. They may be a temptation, but don't do it. The slow release of starch that comes from cooking dry beans is critical to red bean and rice success. Slavery was abolished in the British West Indies in 1833, leaving the plantations there woefully understaffed. This deficit was filled with indentured servants from China and India, both, of course, rice cultures. Now, long grain rices are the standard for most bean and rice dishes, and I prefer to stick with a locally grown product. Now, this is an American basmati that was probably grown either in Texas, Louisiana, or Arkansas. Whatever you do, please avoid parboiled, converted, and boil-in-the-bag rices. Next up, the European continent. In the sultry Caribbean climate, mirepoix, the ubiquitous chorus of onion, carrot, and celery on which so much French cuisine is constructed, and sofrito, the tomato, garlic, and pepper foundation so critical to Spain's plate, combined to give birth to what is now known as the Trinity. 1 onion, 2 green peppers, 3 stalks of celery. Now, most red bean and rice applications also call for 2 dry herbs from Europe, bay and thyme. And as for the New World, well, we can never forget cayenne pepper, a nod to the fiery foods of Jamaica, man. Now, our final ingredient is lesser known, but 100% New Orleans. In the days before refrigeration, most of the pork that was slaughtered in hot and humid New Orleans, or in that area, was preserved, not by smoking, but by pickling. Now, true red beans and rice is indeed seasoned with the tangy goodness of pickled pork. And once you taste it, you'll know why. Now, I'll grant you, it's pretty tough stuff to find outside of Louisiana, but luckily, we can make our own with just a little plain old pork butt. Getting our pork into a pickle will require a few withdrawals from the old spice cabinet. We require 2 tablespoons of yellow mustard seeds, let's see, a tablespoon of celery seeds, 1 single bay leaf, 1/4 teaspoon of black peppercorns, 2 tablespoons of your favorite hot sauce, 1 cup of cider vinegar. Let's see, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/4 cup of kosher salt, and last, but by no means least, 6 whole garlic cloves, peeled and crushed. Thank you, thing. Next up, fetch down your favorite medium saucepan. Dump in everything along with 2 cups of nice clean water. Put the spurs to that high heat and bring to a boil. Then reduce the heat and hold a simmer for a mere 3 minutes. Then kill the heat and add 8 ounces by weight of ice to cool things down. Meanwhile, the meat. We will cube a 1.5-pound hunk of boneless pork butt. That shoulder, of course, not, you know. I generally go with 2-inch pieces, but absolute uniformity is not required. Now, when you've got your pieces done, simply move them into a heavy-duty freezer-style zip-top bag, and when the pickle is cool, pour it on. And be sure to get all the bits and pieces out of the bottom of the pot. We need those too. Now, remove as much air from the bag as possible, and then put it in some kind of drip containment unit and refrigerate for a minimum of 3 days. And be sure you turn the bag a couple times a day just to keep the pickle properly distributed. Now, you can certainly store it in there for up to 2 weeks, but after that, I would probably take it out, drain it, and freeze it, which is a good idea. This way, you never, ever run out. Time to contemplate the beans. Although processors do a pretty good job of sorting and cleaning, the occasional bean-sized pebble does get through. A cursory sort is cheap insurance against molar molestation. These are good to go. Although the thick, spicy, gravy-like blanket of beans that will bathe our rice can be prepared via a wide array of methods, one thing, to my mind, is non-negotiable, and that is the vessel. The deed must be done in a cast iron Dutch oven. 7 quarts would be the ideal size, of course. A tight-fitting lid is always a plus. Down. Our hero vessel goes over medium-high heat, and we will lube up the interior with 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Now, when that begins to shimmer with heat, in go the aromatics. That's 1 onion, chopped, 3 stalks of celery, chopped, and 2 green bell peppers, treated likewise, along with 2 teaspoons of kosher salt and about a teaspoon's worth of freshly ground black pepper. Now, cook this, stirring frequently for 6 to 8 minutes or until the onion and celery become translucent. You know, come to think of it, I really hate that expression because it suggests that when performed correctly, light should simply pass right through the onions, a phenomenon which I personally have never witnessed. At best, I'd say that the vegetables can turn semi-translucent. Why? Well, come here. Fruits and vegetables are nice and crunchy because their cell walls are taut and full of liquid. Now, the framework of the wall is cellulose, a complex carbohydrate that is not water soluble. That is represented here by the vertical metal members. But the bricks and the glue that holds them together are made from water soluble pectins and hemicellulose, played stunningly, in this case, by gelatin. Now, when cooked, these soften and begin to dissolve. This change manifests itself as a shimmering translucence. But don't worry, since the framework is a hemicellulose, your vegetable will never disappear entirely, although you might hope that it would if it happens to be my mother-in-law's vegetables. That was fun. Okay, the peppers are soft and the onions and celery are, so we're going to add 5 cloves of minced garlic and cook for another 1 to 2 minutes, stirring constantly. Remember, garlic burns very easily, and when it does, it's never going to be good eats again. Now we come to the big build. 12 ounces of our pickled pork go in, along with 3 bay leaves, 1 teaspoon of thyme, dry, 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, ground, 1 teaspoon of hot sauce, and then our 1 pound of beans. Last but not least, 2 quarts of water. Please, if your sink water doesn't taste fantastic, don't doom your dish. Use filtered water instead. Okay, heat all the way up and cook, stirring every now and then until you reach a boil, which will probably take 6 to 8 minutes tops. I'd call that a boil. Now, drop the heat so that you just maintain a strong simmer and cook for 1.5 hours, stopping to stir about every half hour or so. Now, you may have noticed, I didn't soak the beans. Truth is, if I was cooking on a wood burning stove and wanted to conserve some fuel, I'd soak them for 6 to 8 hours to speed the cooking process. But truthfully, a couple of hours worth of cooking gas or electricity aren't that costly. Yet. So I'll do all of my rehydrating right here in one fell swoop. Ah! Oh, thank you, thing. Subtle segue. Yes, bean consumption can lead to discomfort. As we've discussed in bean shows before, it's a molecular matter. You see, by the time most foods make it down to your intestinal tract, they've been broken down into very little small pieces, and the enzymes that are responsible for dismantling them so that you can then absorb them make quick work of the job. The problem is that beans contain gigantic molecules called oligosaccharides, and your intestines simply don't possess a tool big enough to break them down. So they float intact downstream into the dark recesses of the colon, where voracious bacteria gleefully feast upon their plenty. Now, as these bacteria dine, they give off gas, and plenty of it. So instead of beating your dog or blaming grandma, next time your beans make music, blame the bacteria. Some folks say that soaking beans before cooking them gets rid of the offending substances, but I have tested and retested and have come to the conclusion that the only way to control your emissions is to train your system by eating more beans. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'll go open a window. Ugh. All right, time is up. We carefully remove the lid and continue to cook for another 30 to 40 minutes, adjusting the heat as needed to maintain this simmer. Now, during this time, of course, the starch that is leached out of the beans is going to thicken this sauce. Now, if you want it even more gravy-like, you could certainly agitate it a little bit. You know, ordinarily I would go for horsepower, but, you know, starch is tricky stuff. Too much agitation and you'll end up with glue instead of gravy. No, thanks. I've been off the stuff since kindergarten. If you do want it a little bit more gravy-like, this will do fine. A hand masher is all the tool you need. There. Now, at this juncture, we have ourselves a nice, big, delicious bowl of fiber, vitamins, minerals, some protein, but mostly we've got a big, delicious bowl of carbohydrates. I hesitate to even say the word because folks tend to freak at its mere utterance as though it were a spell capable of summoning, I don't know, instant Sansa slacks. The truth is, just as different proteins and different fats affect the body in different ways, so do different carbohydrates. So, what exactly is a carbohydrate? Well, it is one of the basic food molecules composed primarily of oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. Now, there are three essential types, monosaccharides, or single sugars, like glucose, blood sugar, disaccharides, double sugars, like sucrose, regular table sugar, and polysaccharides, or complex carbs, which are constructed of at least 3 sugars, and often many, many more. Now, what's important to keep in mind here is that the only carbs your body can absorb are simple carbs. So what really matters here is how the carbs are broken down. So my neighbor Chuck is going to help me with a little experiment. You remember my neighbor Chuck. Say hi, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Okay, here. I am going to dig into this big old bowl of beans while Chuck tucks in to the big bowl of sugar. Bon appetit. How was your sugar?
Delish.
My beans were equally fantastic. Now, let's take a moment to see what is going on inside of Chuck right now via X-rays. I like X-rays. Stay very, very, very still.
Is this thing safe, Mr. Brown? Because I heard high doses of X-rays can be pretty harmful.
Oh, I shouldn't worry too much, Chuck. I got the plans off of the internet and built it myself. It's perfectly safe, I think. Now, before Chuck can utilize all that energy, his pancreas has to secrete insulin, a hormone that essentially, well, grants his various cells chemical permission to take in glucose.
Mr. Brown.
Don't interrupt. Now, since his system is sensing a huge intake of sugar, his pancreas is cranking out a mega dose of
Did you
this
smell
stuff.
something?
And that can be a problem, because once the sugar is dealt with, there will still be a surplus of insulin in his blood, and it's going to need something to do. So his brain is going to tell him to feed the insulin more sugar.
Mr. Brown.
That is why a couple of hours after eating a meal that's high in simple sugars, that is one that is high on the glycemic scale.
Do you have a candy bar around here?
No.
Cookies?
Nope.
Chocolate?
Nope.
Donuts?
No.
Cake?
Nope.
Pie?
Nope.
Soda pop?
No.
Jelly beans? Yogurt pretzels? Sugary cereal? Kettle corn? Anything?
Not even a wafer-thin mint. As you can imagine, this could become a vicious cycle, which could lead to serious health problems. All right, Chuck, thanks very much. You can head on home. Ah, there we go. Oh, I guess an adjustment is necessary. Just send me the cleaning bill and the doctor bill, too. Bye, Chuck. Okay, well, make an adjustment here. Since the sugar that I consumed was in the form of complex carbohydrates, it breaks down very slowly in my system. Thus, my pancreas is cued to excrete insulin at an even normal rate. This means that my blood sugar does not spike. Ergo, I do not go on a foaming at the mouth like Cujo candy rampage 3 hours later, although it is clear from this image that Candy and I are not exactly strangers. Oh, the rice, excuse me. Most bean and rice applications, be they from the Caribbean, Central, or even South America, generally call for long grain rices instead of short or medium. Now, my personal favorites are crosses between American long grain varieties and aromatic basmatis. And I prefer the ones grown in Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. Although South Carolina rices are pretty good, too. Since we're running a wee bit short on time, we shall implement my patented speed rice method, guaranteed to produce fluffy, flavorful rice in 20 minutes flat. First step, bring 3 cups of water to a rolling boil. Since time is of the essence, we will employ an electric kettle for this step. Next, fetch down your favorite medium saucepan and place over high heat. Then go ahead and toss in 1½ tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now just gently jiggle and wiggle until the bubbling ceases and the butter starts to brown. Now, time to invite the rice to the party. 2 cups, along with ½ to 1 teaspoon of salt, and stir. Now, if this reminds you of a risotto procedure, that's because it is. You see, by sautéing the rice, we brown it, thus increasing the natural nutty flavors that linger within each little kernel. We also do some damage, starch damage that is, which will allow water to move into the rice a little more quickly than would be possible through less extreme procedures. So just keep stirring this until the water comes to a boil or until the rice starts to turn a nice tan. Now, our water is boiling, and the rice has taken on a nice, nutty tone. Now, time to bring the two together. Now, keep in mind that although the water is boiling, the rice is even hotter, and bringing the two together is going to be kind of violent. So you may wish to don some thermal protection if you get my drift. Okay, now, dump in the water as fast as you can. Smack on the lid, drop the heat to a simmer, and set your timer. Now, here in Atlanta, I find that 17 minutes is actually perfect, but given your specific altitude, the barometer setting for the day, the pH of the water, and the exact make and model of the rice could be a little different by a minute or two, but I'd start with 17. Now, our rice can go straight to the bowl. At this point, it'll be just a little bit sticky, which I happen to like. But if dry and fluffy is the order of the day, then let your rice sit off of the heat for another 5 minutes before serving. That will allow time for the starches in the rice to stabilize a bit. Now, the beans. Now, by placing beans and rice together in the same meal, we produce a complete protein. That is a meal that provides all of the essential amino acids required to build the various replacement parts that our bodies need to keep going, which no doubt explains, to some extent at least, the nutritional popularity of this dish and its many international avatars. Oh, by the way, remember to remove the bay leaves. They're not good eats. At this point, you could certainly add a finishing flourish, chopped parsley perhaps, or white or green onion. In New Orleans, it is certainly not unusual to see some smoky sausage fried up and placed right on top, grease and all. If America is indeed a melting pot, and I certainly like to think of it that way, then red beans and rice may be the finest testament we have to that polycultural condition. It is nutritious, it is healthy, economical, and if I don't mind saying so myself, it's happy. No wonder jazz great Louis Armstrong himself used to sign his autograph, "Red beans and ricely yours." See you next time on Good Eats, America.